not Sunday morning, so I expect howls. It's better. It's better. So I want to welcome you to the Halloween panel. And I am really, really stoked. I got to go on the set for this film, did interviews with these peeps. They're fantastic. So without further ado, let's announce our guests. First up, one of the unluckiest podcasters in the world, Jefferson Hall. You're going to go right there. Next up, the second unluckiest podcaster in the world, Rian Reese. And last but not least, our Michael Myers, James Jude Courtney. So,
Boo.
so these microphones, you basically have to eat them when you're talking into them.
Hey. Wow.
I know
Wow.
you're hungry, so that's going to be interesting. So first off, I'm gonna do some questions for you all, and then we'll throw it out to the audience. But James, I have to have you tell a story, because when I interviewed you on the set, you happened to be one of the creepiest interviews I've ever had. Not only because your hands were covered in blood and you had a really weird eyeball going on at the time, but you spoke about how you really knew how a person died when they were murdered because of a gentleman that you were friends with and you were writing a book about. And I wanted you to share that with everyone because that just was an interesting thing and terrified me. You said you knew a Mafia Hitman.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, a friend of mine called me. I'm a screenwriter as well, and a friend wrote me about a mafia hitman, or called me about a mafia hitman who'd spent a decade in prison for tax evasion, and so he served his time in Washington, was in a safe house in South Carolina. And then we talked on the phone. He came out and lived with me for 6 months, so he had many confirmed kills in Vietnam, and then of course he was a third generation or fourth generation. I mean, I don't know how many generations mafia family. So he's a made man, and he had quite a few notches on his belt, and he happened to be an Aikidoist, amongst other things, and Aikido is one of the martial arts I practice. So we worked out together, so it wasn't like this is just out of the blue. But I took him to see a little film I did called The Hit List. Played an Australian hitman. I came in at the end to kill a guy named Jeff Fahey. And he deserved it, by the way. So this man, whose name will go unmentioned, I brought him as my guest to the screening, and so we walk out of the film, and he's like, "Jimmy, very nice movie." And I was like, "Thanks, Don." And he goes, "Yeah, but that's not the way you kill people." And I was like, "Oh, well, how do you kill people?" And so we worked on the stealth and efficient nature of murder, because in movies it's all dramatic and there's these pauses, and you look in nature. A wild cat, a wolf, they don't mess around, dude. They just go for it, right? And it's as fast and efficient and silent as possible. And so I learned a lot from that, and that for me really, really mattered to bring to this character, to bring to Michael, because I think for me, except for the absolute joy I had in beating the shit out of Jefferson and Rian, it was really essential to what we created with this Halloween.
Thank you for sharing that, because I thought that was just awesome when you were talking about that. So, Rian, you had one of the most brutal and physical scenes in this movie.
It's true.
You were in a confined space, and you were like in the most just whack thing that you could be in. can you talk about filming that and how it was to film that in the bathroom? Because, I mean, that's just terrifying. That's like when you're most vulnerable.
Is this the shower scene with me you're talking about?
The bathroom.
Oh God, it was just horrible. I don't like gas station toilets. The best times, let alone when, you're in there and they've filled the loos with all sorts of fake number twos, and that
And
was
you're
horrible.
crawling around on it.
Yeah, and then you got evil incarnate just traipsing on in as you're trying to do your business. Not the nicest hour, but it was. Yeah, we just went for it. There was no prep. I think we filmed rehearsals even, right?
What's that?
We filmed rehearsals, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I didn't even know what was going to come out of my mouth. When I hadn't practiced screaming since I was about 4. So I thought a little squeak would come out, or just a tiny little noise. So that was my experience. It's horrible.
Teeth. All I have to say is teeth.
Oh yeah, and they were real teeth as well.
Oh, God.
I don't know how they got them. I think they went to some dentist.
Oh.
I got the nickname Tooth Fairy.
Nice. So Jefferson, you got to brandish the mask before in the film.
Yeah.
Can you talk about being able to be the one that hold that up and to just, we hadn't seen it in so long. And
Yeah, it stunk.
It's
It was disgusting. No, it was an incredible honor, of course, and I'm not a huge Halloween fan, but my best friend is obsessed, and she freaked out and flew to where we're filming to see the mask. Yeah, so it was a big responsibility, and I had it in my bag for a bit, which was a worry, because I'm not very responsible, and a few times people were like, shit, where's the mask? And I was like, I think it's here somewhere. But yeah, it was pretty amazing.
So, and you also had just a knockdown, drag-out, brutal scene, and so you didn't rehearse either?
No, we
did that
didn't.
work?
And Jim was really nice up until that point. He'd be like, "Hey man, how you doing? It's great to see you today. Oh, great
Well, that's
day."
apparently how you
Lads-
murder people.
And then I said, "Hey Jim, how's it doing? We're doing the death scene." And he was like, "Hey man, how's it going? Good to see you, brother." And I was like, "You ready for today?" He goes, "Yeah, I just love fucking people up." And just pulled the mask on, and I was like, "What?" And he just walked off. I was like, Jesus. And he beat my head into that door way more times than was necessary, I have to say. Which hurt, but what hurt was he grabbed the hairs on my back. In the back of your neck's very sensitive, these little hairs. And he had hold of those, I think, on purpose, and I was crying. And it was
It's so I wouldn't let go, man, because if I let go, I was going to break your freaking nose.
I know. No.
But I can tell you this, Jefferson took that beating like a man.
And cried a little bit as
And
well.
Rian kicked like a mule. And cried like a man.
Cried like a man.
I took that choking like a man too, didn't I?
What's that?
I took the choking like a man too.
Oh,
didn't I?
right. Well, no, like a woman.
Thanks. A woe man.
So, Halloween, this film was such a beloved creation, and the story in it was very empowering and different, and kind of the switcheroo when it came to who was stalking who at this point. Can you talk about reading that script and realizing, what this was really going to be, and how different of a take it was, and the fact that, Jamie came back and just kicked ass as Laurie, and it sort of also, in respect to Michael as well, with your portrayal of him, we got to see, people over 40 be badasses, which was pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Come on over 40s.
Yeah, right? Well, first of all, when I read the script, and obviously I've read a few in my few years on this planet, the thing I have to say is, when I first moved out to Los Angeles, I, with a lot of other starving up-and-coming artists, lived in a small apartment complex that was supposed to be torn down or moved to, in Brentwood, that was supposed to be moved to central Los Angeles for HUD housing. So it was a British company that owned it, and a young lady from London, or from, Warrington, Cheshire, was sent over to manage it, and just to make sure that no squatters showed up or anything. It took her about a month to realize that nobody was watching, so why not rent it out and make the money herself? So she rented it out to people like me, and there were people like Dice Andrew Clay and Sam Kinison, and the guy that directed my first film, and so there were a bunch of artists and everything there. And I learned then, and it's become, I think, so true, that comedians, amongst all the people, amongst all artists, I think have the greatest insight into human nature, because they recognize irony, and they can find humor in tragedy, and they can find humor in all the human foibles that we all enjoy in our lives. So with Danny McBride and David Green and Jeff Radley, writing the screenplay, there was insight, there was human insight that you don't normally see, I think, at least to this level in a horror film. So that was what first struck me. Pardon me. So it was very clear that we're all very aware of #MeToo and the female empowerment movement now, and those of us who are really paying attention realize that men will not be fully empowered till women are fully empowered, and so this is really a human empowerment moment, and I think these guys got it, and so then when I met Jamie and got to know her, dude, she is the poster child for an empowered female. I mean, the woman is brilliant and empowered and self-deprecating and quirky, does not suffer fools gladly. She's the consummate professional. I mean, so she epitomized and brought to life what the writers had intended, which only a professional like her could do. And I have to say, the casting up and down, all the way around, everybody they put around her and myself, and I mean, these guys, I mean, it was incredible. So I think it's one of those things. It was the perfect script at the perfect time, and we knew, I think all of us knew when we were making it, that it was special. We just knew that something special was happening. I mean, we all know that in our lives. Sometimes we're just doing something and we know, whoa, this is a special moment. Let's grab a hold of it. And we had such great chemistry, all of us. We had so much fun together. We've developed such beautiful relationships and friendships because we were all part of this thing that was much larger than ourselves. So for myself, I have just immense gratitude for having the opportunity to be a part of that, to work with Jamie, to have been able to play a part in fleshing out that script, and to be here with you guys, man. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy on the planet.
Oh, thank you for that. That's a beautiful answer. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get the crowd involved. If you raise your hands high, and Stan will come over and get you on the mic.
This is for Rhiann. I want to know, in the scene in the bathroom stall, when you hit your head on the toilet, was that scripted or was that an accident and they just wanted to keep it in?
It was a complete accident. I really did hit my head and it bloody hurt. Best acting I've ever done.
A lot of reviews, the podcasting angle was called your characters. I've heard it called things like a Greek chorus in reference to your characters. And my question is, did you see it in that kind of nature, that it, in terms of how you viewed it, that you're bringing people into a story and that you're also commenting on that kind of podcasting thing, everyone being a detective, and as you think that's a response to that kind of culture that Michael gave? But yeah, just that kind of, how did you approach your characters? You two.
Bob?
Yeah, I agree. I think Greek Chorus is a kind review. I read one that said that we were just shit. Not actors,
Thanks.
I have to say, but podcasters. They were like, are they any good? No, they're terrible. Look at what they did. They got killed, and they kind of led a man to escape from an asylum and spurred this sort of murder spree. But we did loads of research prior to it into serial killers, and I think around that time as well, 78 was, I don't want to call them all the best of, that sounds awful, but like Jeffrey Dahmer, I think, was around then, and Bundy, and then what's the big fella with the glasses, Ed something. Yeah,
Gacy.
Kemper and Herb Mullins and Richard Chase, the vampire. So they were all around that time, and
I
so
believe you remember them.
yeah, well, they're kind of stained in my mind, and they're pretty disgusting. But they really helped get into the groove of it, and it was kind of weird because it was like a reality because it happened then. It was that amount of time ago. So to play those parts wasn't a huge leap as far as like investing in what happened, because it happened, and you invest in that film as we do as something that happened. It's a story. Who's to say reality is not, whatever. So you just watch that film, go, that happened. Don't watch it again, and then do the research. And yeah, so real life stuff helped, and then going into it like that. We argued a little bit about whether we were podcasters or not to begin with.
Yeah, I wanted to be podcasters, and Jefferson wanted to be investigative journalists. So I said we're a bit of a blend of those things. Yeah, I just don't know what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think, it's just the amount of serial killers out there and how this story reflected that, and how I read a lot about wild animal attacks. It's funny Jim mentioned animals and the way they behave, like mountain lions. I got a couple of books about how they kill people and how there's a deadness and a stillness when they look at you, and there's no reasoning with them. You can kind of... I did that with Jim, it didn't work. Like, Jim! Gone! Nothing. So yeah.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So when we were doing the podcast, we took lots of little walks together, didn't we, and started recording people talking, but they didn't know we were doing that.
Yeah, that was naughty.
And then when we, when I read the reviews that said we were awfully annoying, I thought, well, I don't think I was that annoying. I think that Aaron was a little bit annoying because he was provoking Michael, and who would do that?
Who wouldn't do that?
No, but the point is we were cutting loads of corners as podcasters, so we weren't that professional, and karma got us in the end.
Over to the right.
Hi there. Thank you for being here. My question kind of pertains to the history and kind of you being a part of the future. I know with John Carpenter and Jamie Lee interviews about the original, they had noted that when they made it, they didn't think that it would become the phenomenon that it is today for all of us here. How does it feel for all three of you to be a part of the mythos? Here it is 40 years later, and part of what's regarded as, I think, the best sequel since the original and everything. So how does it feel to be a part of the Halloween mythos for the three of you now?
Well, I have to say from the beginning, when I was called to do the role, as soon as I know I'm working, it's a mission for me. So I don't think about who I'm working with. I don't think about what I'm doing. It becomes about the mission, and the mission is focusing in on creating the character and doing the work. So through the whole process of doing the work, it was that. It was and for me, there's this interesting study done on special forces versus regular army, for instance. Regular army, when they're at rest, and they're not out on the battlefield, their brain chemistry is normal, their heart rate is normal. But as soon as they go into battle, their heart rate goes up, their brain chemistry changes. Special forces are the opposite. When they're at rest and they don't have missions, their brain chemistry is skewed, their heart rates are skewed. But as soon as they're given a mission, they get calm, they get focused, and so on mission, that's why they're special forces. My dad was special forces, and that's the way my mind works. So as soon as I'm locked into something, I immediately get calm. And I can honestly say, like, during the time we were working, I had not one nanosecond of stress or anxiety because this is what I do. So I never thought about it. And then now, at this point in the game, I get to be aware of the fact that I'm involved, that I get to be a part of something that's much larger than myself. And I just feel honored, man, because, for instance, I could never have done what I did without Nick Castle, without Deborah Hill, without John Carpenter. So I'm the lucky guy who got to catch a wave that had already built up to 50 feet. And then it was just my job to surf it and not fall off the board. You know what I mean? So for me, it's honor and the joy. And this really is joy, meeting you guys. I love doing this part because this is the fun part, man. This is where I get to look in people's eyes and share that moment where we get to nerd out together and just understand that we're enjoying something together. And so, again, I'm the luckiest dude on the planet.
For me personally, it felt like traveling to a brand new planet.
Oh my God, you got a zombie dog.
I'm so sorry.
You can't
guys
take him
carry on.
anywhere. He's
Dude.
just going to nibble now next to me.
I'm sorry.
No, it felt like going to a brand new planet, and I didn't really know what to expect. And as soon as I landed on the planet, I thought, oh, this is new, and don't know if there's any aliens here or craters that I should look out for, and et cetera, et cetera. But now I'm on the planet and I've relaxed and adjusted. It's such a lovely planet to be a part of, and I don't think I want to go home.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. It's like a terrible mistake. Seriously. No, it's just amazing. Yeah. And overwhelming and just a huge honor. Really. And like Jim says, to meet you guys, and this is where it lands, and have that reflection and that reverberation and an echo of what you do in such a lovely way with such great people who really care about something is just a privilege. So thank you.
Indeed.
I just wanted to say how much I love the film, and I love how this film is like a love letter to the Halloween franchise itself, with all the Easter eggs. You know, if you're a fan of the franchise, you know how those little hidden little scenes in there. What was that like being a part of those, and what would be your favorite Halloween film of the franchise that you're a fan of yourself?
This one.
You just said something so lovely. Two of my favourite things in the world are chocolate Easter eggs and love letters.
You're so romantic, Ian.
Thank you.
I'm so sad I killed you.
Me too. It's horrible.
Now, I mean, for me, when, because I'm the senior here, I was an undergrad when the first one came out, 1978. And I knew in fourth grade I was going to make films. My dad had a movie camera. I had 6 younger brothers. He shot every football game, every boxing match, every karate tournament, every basketball game. So we have boxes and boxes of 8mm film. I started making my own films in 5th grade, so I paid attention. And my dad used to sit with us on Saturday nights and watch the classic horror films. So when I saw Halloween in 1978, I walked out of that theater going, wow, this is a game changer. Like, I just knew it. Like, it was something different. So for me, no film, no Halloween will ever compare to the first, because it was so unusual and iconic and so innovative. John Carpenter's music, oh my God, goes straight to the amygdala, goes straight to the part of the brain that just reeks of fear, right? It's like, and I don't know that anybody had ever accomplished that or ever will to the degree that he did, because no one had ever done it before. So there's not, I mean, I think collectively we did a really great job, and I'm very proud of the work we did together. But for me, the first will always be the iconic film that it is.
Straight up the middle.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
All right.
Hello.
You know how when you go to see a sequel, you're not quite sure how it's really going to be. And we went the first night it came out, and I have to say, it was phenomenal. It was the performance, the storyline, everything, and just want to say thank you for continuing to entertain us, and because with this legacy. And my question is, when's the next one?
If we told you when the next one was, we'd all three have to kill you.
And I'm already dead.
So, yeah, we're not allowed to talk about that. But here's what I'll say about that. The film made $300 million in 2 months. What do you think is going to happen? Like, a kindergartner could figure that out, without an economics degree.
Yeah, they're going to call it quits there and just go, we made a good film. That's no more.
Yeah, right?
That's enough.
May I just say, James, first of all, you made a wonderful Michael Myers.
Oh, thank you.
And my question is, what were your guys' favorite and least favorite scenes to record? And also, James, did you ever look to the first movie for inspiration on how to perform for Michael Myers?
Yeah. Well, what happened was when they called me, because they were extremely specific about what they needed. When Ron Hutchinson, the stunt coordinator, read the script, he said to Malika Akkad and David Green, "We need somebody who has really deep acting chops and also is a really good stuntman." And there's not a whole lot of those guys around. Most guys are, invest themselves in being stuntmen or invest themselves in being actors. And actors can do some stunts, and stuntmen can do some acting. But when it comes down to going really deep into both of those, not too many people do it. Oh, and by the way, he has to be exactly my height, exactly my weight, and in his 60s. And so that really narrowed it down. And they were like, and they said to Ron, "Well, do you know anybody?" He goes, "Yeah, I know one guy, Jimmy Courtney." And so Ron calls me up and he goes, "All right, man. So they want to see you." And I had moved from Los Angeles back to Columbia, South Carolina, where I went to high school and college. My family lives. So what I did was I watched, instead of, I studied with Stella Adler, who was Marlon Brando's coach, and I had a private coach from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And, so I have a process that I go through as an actor where I create reasons for everything, and I have relationships with everyone, and so everything is fleshed out. But with this one, I watched Halloween, the original Halloween, one time. What I was looking to do is embrace the energy that Nick Castle was holding. I wasn't going to emulate him, because if I were to, that would be artificial, to try to imitate Nick Castle. So what I was looking for was whatever was going on in Nick Castle, and there was a particular scene where he's walking camera left to camera right in the backyard, and I was sitting there watching it, and I went, I got it. Whatever that feeling was, I got it. I grabbed it. And so then I went down, they put me on tape. I drove from Columbia, South Carolina to Charleston. They put me on tape. And I went out to the parking lot. I wasn't out of the parking lot, and I got a call from Los Angeles at Blumhouse. And they're like, "Hey, are you available to work?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I wasn't even at the interstate yet, and they called me back and said, "Hey, can you come back? David wants to meet you." So it turns out, as I understand it, I was really the only guy they looked at. So embracing that, embodying that energy was because I watched the first one, and that's all I did. I watched it one time, and that was it. I never thought about it again. In fact, even after I read the original script and then I read 2 or 3 revisions, I stopped reading it. I stopped reading the sides every day. I didn't even know what I was going to do when I showed up at work every night, because I was in that space. And so as soon as I dropped into that character, David would tell me what to do, or Ron Hutchinson would tell me what to do, and then we would work things out together, and it just flowed from there.
All the way at the back.
I like to say, first of all, the Halloween 2018, the best Halloween movie ever. Thank you. And second of all, every October, even before our Halloween, I always watch some scary movies. What scary movies do you watch on Halloween?
I'll let you guys go.
I like to...
Showgirls.
The Birdcage.
I like The Witches by Roald Dahl.
I think
Is that horror?
Romance films. Dude, I've had guns to my head in real life. I've had guns to my head. I've been in street fights. I've crashed cars as a stuntman. I've done thousands of high falls. I'm scared of getting married. So I'll watch a chick flick and it'll scare the shit out of me.
Sweet. Don't you love us? I thought your favourite horror film was Jaws.
My favorite film is Jaws. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
That's
He knows
awesome.
it line by line.
Hey guys, just like everybody else, love the movie. You always did a great job. But the question's for James. When I was at your table, I asked you about the kid that you killed. You said he deserved it.
He did.
And then in your first story there, you said whoever you killed in a different movie, they deserved it. Is that something like you say to yourself to kind of justify it, or is it just like, hey, I like killing people anyway, I don't know.
I honestly feel like I don't need to justify it. You know, like Jefferson pointed out, you know, like when a cat is lying in wait, and if you know cats, you'll see the tail. You know it's coming. Most people don't pay attention to that. There's a motivation that I never went into this character intellectually, so I don't think about, nor do I think about it now. It's a place, it's a space, it's a universe that exists that I can allow to expand within me. I can breathe it in, I can breathe it out. I'll leave it to other people to intellectualize it. You guys can figure that shit out. I don't want to, because the space is the place for me. It's just kind of a joke, you know. I mean, you know, the kid deserved it, but oddly enough, that kid
Did deserve it.
he did deserve it. Little snot. His dad is a chiropractor who rented office space from my brother Bill, who's a politician and a landowner, you know, a developer in Bluffton, South Carolina. So it's so funny how this, you know, the web of life leads us to meet people and know people and how we all come together. So turns out my brother and his dad have known each other for years and years and years. And by the way, that was his first job, and the kid killed it. He was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
He was such a pro. He was awesome. But he did deserve it.
So this question's kind of for all of you. Was it weird to like ignore all of the other Halloweens except for the first one, or was it easier?
I'll let you guys answer that.
Easier for me because I hadn't seen any of them. And David said quite strictly, please just watch the first one. And you can watch the others after the films come out, obviously. But so I did as I was told. And it made it much clearer for me. Had I watched the others, it might have affected how I felt.
Yeah, it's the same as Rian. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I really agreed with their. I mean, look, anybody who knows anything about making films knows that it's insanely difficult to get a film made. It's a minor miracle. Even when a really, really bad film is made, every single person on that film is doing the best they can to make as good a film as they can. It's a minor miracle when a film gets financed. And so I wouldn't sit here and you know, judge the pros and cons of each particular Halloween film, because everyone who worked on those films did the best they could. And you have to take a risk when you make a film. You're taking a risk as an actor, you're taking a risk as a director, as a writer. Everybody's risking when they're creating on that level. It was really important, I think, to pay homage to the original, and I really thought it was a wonderful idea. Look, Rick Rosenthal and Nancy Stevens are friends of mine. I played tennis at their house for years. And I think Rick did a wonderful job with Halloween 2 and Nancy, and that's where they met. And they've had this beautiful, long-standing relationship, and they're wonderful people. And Rick is a wonderful director. But I think it was really excellent that, you know, they chose this tack because there was sort of a purity to it. And I think what it did was allowed for the empowerment of Laurie Stroud's character, which I think was essential to the success of this film. And I think, again, so essential to and relevant to what's happening in society right now. So I really give credit to John Carpenter and to David Green and Danny McBride and Malik Akkad and, you know, Blumhouse for coming together and making this decision, because I think it was the right decision to make.
All right, one more question.
This one might be kind of unexpected, but To me, one of the most funniest parts watching the movie when I was in theaters happened to be the scene where the babysitter is watching the kid, and like just the way that they trained that kid, like in that movie, was just so hilarious. Listening to the stuff that he just said when Michael just showed up, like, how was it like for you guys working with that kid when you guys were doing the takes for that scene in the movie? Like, was there multiple occasions where you guys had to cut because maybe you were just laughing so hard at just listening to him and his just spot on just reactions and stuff?
Oh, we didn't actually do any scenes with that
we don't think
kid.
we did.
But I loved his performance, and I met him afterwards. He was so funny.
Yeah, he was incredible.
He's a joy to work with, and you know, it was said, and I think it's true, he's the smartest freaking kid in horror. Like, he's the only kid who would go, no, dude, don't go up there. You know? Every other horror film is like, oh, I think I'm gonna go through the door. You know? No, man, this kid's like, dude, what are you, stupid? You know? Some of that was scripted. The toenails was scripted. A lot of it was improv. He's like a 50-year-old guy in a freaking 8-year-old, 12-year-old body or whatever, how old he is. His dad is a highly creative individual. Jabril is just a super, super, super kid. He's got a great future ahead of him. He was so fun to work with. That scene was, once again, I'll consider he's a new actor. The babysitter, the young lady who played the babysitter, it was her first film. I mean, where they're finding these people was really incredible. She, by the way, beat the shit out of my arm. That was not a breakaway chair. It was a real wooden chair. And so she was hitting me in the arm, like full on, and this is her first job. So she's like, am I hitting you too hard? I'm like, I'm not gonna say no, because it's gonna make her self-conscious, then she's gonna do half a job, and then so, we did 35 takes, man. I mean, it took a week for the bruises to come out of my arm, because they were so deep. And he just kept us rolling. He was just, but like a true pro, he wasn't looking for attention like you would expect a young performer to do. He wasn't the kid who walks into the middle of a group and tries to steal attention from the adults at a party. He's a pro. Like, he was born a pro. He walked in, he did his job, he just had to be funny as shit. And it made it all that much more believable. I mean, he was a joy to work with, man, a joy.
Guys, thank you so, so much. Give it up for the cast of Halloween.
Thank you.